Hey friends, Tony here from TL Yarn Crafts. When you try crochet for the first time, there is a lot to learn, and one of the big topics is yarn weights. Yarn weight refers to the thickness of a strand of yarn and can impact the types of projects you make, the hook size you use, and even the time of year that you use a particular yarn. Understanding yarn weights is crucial to growing your crochet skills, and in today's video, I'm going to guide you through the standard yarn weight system to make sure you're choosing the right yarn for your next project. Now, if that sounds like a good time, make sure you like this video and consider subscribing to my channel. And before we touch a skein of yarn, we have to give some love to our Cup of Caffeine sponsor. Today's sponsor is named Jenny R. And when donating, Jenny said, "I just started to crochet using your videos and you truly have a gift for teaching. I just made my first granny square and I'm so proud. I find your videos and projects so inspiring." Thank you so much, Jenny. That really touches my heart. Granny squares are my favorite thing and I'm glad that you're enjoying them as well. Now, if you like my videos and want to support my channel, buy me a coffee. Who knows, I might shout you out in the next one. I want to give a massive thank you to Barocco for providing me with all of the gorgeous yarns that you're going to see in today's video. Barocco has multiple brands under their umbrella, ranging from lace weight to jumbo, and we'll get to play with many of them today. Stick around until the end and hear how you can get your hands on these yarns in a giveaway. Here in the US, we use a system with 8 categories of yarn thickness. Let's take a closer look at each of them. Category 0 is called lace, and it is the thinnest of the bunch. Your mohair silk blends fall into this category, as do cotton crochet thread and fine animal fiber yarns. These are delicate yarns which are classically used for heirlooms like doilies and tablecloths. Currently, these yarns are often doubled and tripled or held with other yarns to offer texture and stability. You can also work these yarns on their own for feather light shawls and micro amigurumi. If you're looking for a lace weight project in the classic style, check out my Monty wrap. Category 1 is called superfine, but it's commonly referred to as fingering weight, though you might also hear it called sock weight, and we'll talk more about that in a moment. Fingering weight is slightly heavier than lace weight and became more popular with crocheters for its beautiful drape and wide availability. Consider superfine yarn for lightweight colorwork sweaters and flowy shawls. Other common projects are summer tops, socks, and even blankets. And while we're here, let's clarify the difference between fingering weight and sock yarn. Fingering weight is the category, and sock yarn is a type of yarn within that category. They work up to a similar gauge, but sock yarn has specific characteristics that make it more suitable for socks. It often has more plies, which are the individual strands that are twisted together to make that yarn. Sock yarns typically have a bit of nylon in them for strength to make sure that your socks don't get holes in them. So yes, sock and fingering yarns are the same weight, but I wouldn't say that they're interchangeable. For crocheters looking to finally try fingering weight yarn, you can check out my popular flat iron shawl or the Tunisian crochet rancher shawl. Category 2 is referred to as fine or sport weight. Often a forgotten weight, sport weight gets its name from sportswear, which is a fashion term for casual clothing. This is a great choice for items that need a light touch with a bit more substance. Think baby clothing and blankets, early autumn sweaters, and lightweight accessories. My Cabana Cardi is worked in sport weight yarn and is perfect for a summer day. Category 3 is called light, but you've probably heard it called light worsted or more commonly DK. It gets its name from a time when fingering weight was the main yarn available. Knitters would hold 2 strands of fingering weight yarn together to get a thicker gauge, thus the term double knitting or DK. Now to me, DK weight is like the Goldilocks of yarn weights because it has the best features: great drape, fast stitching, and there are lots of fiber and color options. Plus, this yarn weight works well for basically any project in any season. I personally love it for temperature blankets, any kind of clothing, as well as fall accessories. I've got a bunch of DK weight designs, including the new Timber Duo and the fan favorite Frankie Bucket Hat. Category 4 is the one most beginner crocheters gravitate towards, and that's medium weight, more commonly called worsted weight, but you might also hear it called Aran weight. It's super easy to find in stores and is great for beginners because you can actually see your stitches. Beyond your early practice, you can use worsted weight yarn for most projects like blankets, home decor, and amigurumi. Aran weight yarn is lumped into category 4, but this yarn is actually heavier than typical worsted weight, so you might hear it called heavy worsted. It hovers somewhere between a worsted and a bulky, and it has the same benefits of a traditional worsted weight yarn. Now, if you want to give worsted weight projects a go, try my saltwater Afghan or the Omar wrap, both of which are free patterns on my blog. Next is category 5, or bulky weight yarns. These yarns are loved by crocheters for their fast stitching and the structure that they add to home decor pieces. Bulky weight yarn has a visible thickness that is very on trend right now for oversized wearables, hats and scarves, as well as bags. Bulky weight yarn is getting even easier to find in local yarn stores as well as big box stores in an array of fibers, so don't shy away from a yarn that's new to you. You never know what amazingness you might come up with. Are you looking to try a cardigan? Bulky weight is a great choice for beginners. Try the Cozy Kima Cardi or give the Tunisian Crochet Pemba Cardi a go. Now, if you like bulky weight yarn, you're gonna love super bulky weight, which is category 6. Super bulky yarns are very thick and often used for weighted blankets, sturdy baskets, as well as novelty items like Mondo plushies and chunky hats. If you love to finish projects fast, this is the yarn weight for you. Super bulky weight yarn is also a good choice for last minute gifts and items for your craft show booth. A few of my favorite super bulky weight designs are the Kensington tote bag from my book or the Queen Cowl, which is one of the first patterns I ever designed. The last and newest yarn weight is category 7 jumbo weight yarn. This yarn is comically thick and came into fashion when boutique yarn companies started offering roving yarn as part of their signature look. Now, more and more companies are offering jumbo weight yarn, often in wool, acrylic, or blended fibers. This yarn allows you to really see the stitches and they work up quickly, but finer details are harder to achieve with such a thick yarn. I've seen this most often used for statement pieces like bags, scarves, as well as rugs. It's also a go-to choice for finger crochet. Jumbo yarn is a great time to introduce some texture, and you can see it in full force in my last minute scarf and my Haze handbag designs. What I've gone through are the US weight standards, but there are different standards for UK and Australian stitchers. I've included a link below to thegoodyarn.com, which has comparison charts for each country's standards if you want to take a look at that. Now that you know the standard weights, let's talk about determining the weight of the yarn that's in front of you. There are 3 main ways to do this. The first way is by checking the yarn label. Yarn labels vary from brand to brand, but many big box brands have adopted the standard yarn weight system. You're going to see a symbol that looks like this, which lets you know the weight that the company has determined the yarn to be. This is generally helpful, but keep this in mind. Yarns within a category can vary widely in yardage as well as fiber. Because of this, we cannot assume that yarns within the same category are interchangeable. Take these 2 yarns for instance. They both fall into the sport weight category, but they do vary slightly in yardage per 100 grams, so they might not be the perfect swap for one another. The next way to determine weight is my personal favorite, which is by yardage. I like to swap yarns a lot in my projects, and going by yardage is an easy, though not foolproof, way to do this. Each weight category has an approximate range of yardage, and you can use those for quick yarn substitutions. For example, a category 3 DK weight yarn typically has 240 to 280 yards per 100 grams. If a pattern calls for a DK weight yarn that I can't access, I can find another yarn that has similar yardage and fiber, and it should be a suitable swap. Now, if you go with this method, do not skip that swatch. That's what's going to confirm if that swap is actually suitable. I like to use the yard ranges created by the Crafty Jackalope, and I've linked those down in the description. Now, if you want to be precise, the experts are going to suggest finding weight by wraps per inch. This is an especially useful method if you have yarn that has no labels. To determine weight this way, wrap the yarn around a ruler for 1 inch. I personally like to use a chunky knitting needle, and then count the number of wraps that you've achieved for that 1 inch length. That number of wraps corresponds to the yarn's weight, and you can find that info on the Crafty Jackalope's page as well. Remember, that is linked down in the description. We know our yarn's weight, so what hook size should we use? Now, you're going to be surprised at how difficult of a question that this is to answer. Yarn companies make gauge swatches with each of their yarns to help determine the best hook match, and you can check the label to see their recommended hook size, as well as the gauge that their sample maker was able to achieve. But this is not a universal practice. practice. Many labels will only list the knitting needle size and gauge, and you won't find information on what crochet hook size to use. Now, in case you don't know, gauge is the number of stitches and rows that you can stitch in a piece of crocheted fabric. While hook recommendations and approximate gauge are nice to have on the label, they're really just a starting point to determine what your fabric will look like. Every single crocheter's gauge is slightly different, and the material of your hook, the humidity of the room, even the mood that you're in can impact your gauge. If you've ever tried stitching late at night or while watching a stressful football game, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. Now, I talked to the folks at Barocco about this, and their advice is to stitch for the fabric that you want over just trying to meet gauge. When taking on a new project, adjust your hook size as well as the material of your hook until you achieve a fabric with the drape and structure that you want, even though it may conflict with the pattern. Here I have 3 samples made in the same yarn, crocheted with different hook sizes. Each of these unblocked swatches is perfectly lovely fabric, but would be suitable for different uses. The tighter gauge would be better for a rug or something that needs structure. The medium gauge would be great for everyday items like a hat or scarf, while the looser gauge will work best for a flowy cardigan or a shawl. The main point I want you to take away from this is that hook recommendations are just that, recommendations. No one is going to beat down your door because you chose a hook larger or smaller than what the company tells you to use. Use the hook size you need for the project you're making. Holding multiple strands of yarn together in a project has become increasingly popular. You might see a mohair held with fingering weight yarn for a sweater, which gives it a nice halo and prevents pilling. Or you may see 3 or even 4 strands of worsted weight yarn held together to make a sturdy basket out of scraps. If you're in a pinch, you can even hold yarns together to achieve a yarn weight that you don't already have in your stash. There's a lot of debate on what weight you achieve by holding multiple strands together. I'm going to give you my quick and dirty solution, and y'all can duke it out in the comments. You remember when I said I like to go by yardage to determine weight? Well, I do the same thing when doubling yarns. Let's take this skein of DK weight yarn, for example. There are 290 yards in this 100-gram skein. If I hold this yarn double, it would cut the yardage in half, which gives me 145 yards per 100 grams, which falls into the bulky weight category. So, holding 2 strands of this DK weight yarn together would give me the approximate gauge of a bulky weight yarn. From there, I pick my hook and make a gauge swatch and see what kind of fabric the yarn makes. Now that method works for holding 2 strands of the exact same yarn together, but the math changes when you hold different weights together, like say lace and fingering, and the math changes further when you hold different yarns of different brands together. Combining yarns is another chance to play an experiment while creating a fabric that works for you. This video dives deep into the standard yarn weight system, helping you read yarn labels better and match yarns with your projects. And while understanding yarn weights is important, I'm giving you all these rules just so you feel more confident breaking them. One of the joys of growing your crochet skills is knowing enough about what you're doing so you can go off script. I've altered every single sweater pattern that I've worked on based on my knowledge of yarn weight, fiber, and my own gauge. I've designed blankets in every weight from fingering weight to super bulky because I know how these yarns perform. There is so much nuance to yarn arts, and you don't need to know everything right up front to make something truly beautiful. The real fun of this craft is in the play and the experimentation, so don't be afraid to try a new yarn weight or a fiber if it speaks to you. I promised you a giveaway, and here it is. I've got so much lovely yarn left over after making this video, and I want it to go to happy homes. I'll make 3 giveaway bundles of full and partial skeins and send them to 3 lucky winners. To enter, make sure you're subscribed to my channel and comment below with one thing that you learned from this video or one additional piece of advice that you have for crochet newbies. I'll pick 3 winners 3 days from now and announce the winners in my community tab on Wednesday, February 7th, 2024. I'll also reply to your comment, so keep an eye on your notifications. I really hope you enjoyed this video and it added to your foundational knowledge of crochet. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye!